Hey guys, Anthony here with Doable. Welcome back to the channel. As you may or may not know, I currently also run a food truck business, a snow cone shaved ice business here in Las Vegas, Nevada called Breaking the Ice. My wife and I started that business a few years ago. We purchased it off of the sellers and have been operating it ever since. Um, the food truck industry requires us to have our own power in that generators or inverters and such is required, which I actually have both on both of my trailers, which I'll have videos on those coming up in the future as well, diving into both the solar side and the inverter side and so on. But today I wanted to share a quick video because I've gone to a lot of events and seen a lot of individuals running the Predator 9500, which is what I have. I currently have two of them, one for each trailer. And my smaller trailer is fine in that it doesn't require a whole lot of power. I don't have a lot of equipment on that needs a whole lot of power. My bigger trailer, however, a 50 amp trailer requires a significant amount of power, and in some cases I needed either 50 amp dedicated or um, 50 amp dedicated in order to operate efficiently and not have any problems with any of the equipment and so on. The Predator 9500 is not a it doesn't have a 50 amp outlet or a 50 amp plug on the inverter or on the generator, I must say, but it does have the capability of putting out 63.3 max amps. Okay, and I've on both of my trailers I've done this where I have built my own generator plug where I tapping into both the 30 amp outlets on the generator and utilizing the full 60 plus amps that I can from the generator. I'm going to go ahead and show you how I've made those and give you, just to give you some feedback or some ideas as to how you can do it. Disclaimer here though, I am not an electrician. I'm not a licensed electrician, and this is not a how-to video. This is a how I've done it video and what I've done over the last 2 years. And it's worked for me. I've had no issues ever since I've built these plugs for my generators. And I've had no issues either with my trailer or my generators for that matter. Since then, I've helped several other food truck uh, individuals build their plugs to adapt to their generators, and they've had no problems with it. They've been very grateful and thankful. So this video is basically just to share information, share the knowledge, so you guys can attempt at doing it yourself, or hire an electrician if you're not comfortable with electricity, guys. Again, I'm not an electrician. I'm not certified in electricity or anything. I just watched a lot of YouTube videos, learned how to do some of this stuff myself, and doing some research and taking precautions in doing it. And it's worked out for me fine over the last 2 years. Like I said, I've been doing it in that fashion. So with that said, I will show you a few clips of my generator, show you the plugs, show you the outlets that I'm referring to, and then get into the making of that plug so you can see how it all comes together. Stay tuned. So here you see my generator with the plugs hanging on it. This is the 50 amp plug that goes into my trailer. These are the two 30 amp plugs that came with the generator that will plug into the respective outlets on the generator. And on my generator, you'll see you'll have the 3-prong 30 amp outlet on this side. It says 30 amps up there, 120 AC. And then you'll have the AC 120, 240, 30 amp outlet on this side that has the 4 prongs to it. Okay. My generator is currently running in the 240 setting. All right, so once it fires up, it provides the 240 output. But I am getting 30 amps from this generator, from this plug, sorry, and 30 amps from this plug to maximize the output that I can get, which is maximum output 63.3 amps that the generator is capable of putting out. Okay, so I'll get into showing you how the plug is made. As you can see, it's 2 plugs or 2 wires tapped in. It does take some finagling to get it done, but it is doable. I've built 2 of these for my personal trailers and several others for other trailers out there, and they've been very happy with it. So stand by. So in order to get this done, guys, a few things that you will need to get this done properly. You need your wire cutters, wire stripper, also wire stripper, automatic. Prefer this one over the other one, to be honest with you. This one, I love it. It works really, really great. Wire snips, maybe a flathead screwdriver and a Phillips head screwdriver. You'd need some cutters as well uh, for helping to strip the thick sleeve off the sheathing, or the sheathing off the wires. Then you have your different size of ferrules that you'll see me utilize on the ends of the wiring, and I'll explain that when we get to it, as well as your ferrule crimpers. These are 2 different sizes, and I'll show you the purpose of those here shortly as well. All right, guys, so I'm going to get into taking my plugs apart. So excuse me if my plugs look a little grimy or something. It's working plugs that I am taking apart just to show you. This is my off season also, so I'm doing some maintenance checks just to make sure that everything is intact, everything is tight, which I highly recommend doing after running, plugs you've made for a while, or just to check your electrical connections with the unplugging and plugging them back in. Things could come loose if there's heat going through, electricity or amperage going through those plugs. Sometimes the terminals can heat up and cause a loose connection over time. So, it's a good idea to check those periodically to make sure that you've got everything locked down tight, and you won't have any issues when you go to work again. So my 50 amp plug, first and foremost, as you can see, I just cut the back of the boot to be able to plug these 2 cables in. If I'm not mistaken, these were 10-3 wires, 10 gauge, 3 conductor wires. I'll try to find the data specs here on it if I can and show that to you. But that way I'd have enough wire size to basically carry the amperage needed without having any issues. So there shouldn't be any overheating of the terminals or anything. So by just pulling the boot back, it's just a protective boot over the housing, and pull that back. I personally like using my electric drill for everything, as I try to get things done as quickly as possible. If you're not comfortable with the power of the drill, feel free to use yourself a manual screwdriver. But I like using my electric drill being a mechanic in my previous life as well has helped me to kind of get to know how much power to put on my tools or in torques and so on. So I'm just comfortable using my screwdriver for my electric screwdriver for everything. Once you back these out, the housing just pulls off, as you can see. Once you pull that off, as you can see here, I had both sheathing off the cable also plugged into the wire relief or the strain relief section of the plug right here that allows the plug to not be pulled. If I try to pull them apart, it won't pull on the terminals that are in here for each of them. So looking in here, sorry about that break, guys. Had to get some light in and switch cameras around here because I wanted to make sure that you guys are able to see the colors of my wires as I demonstrate this. So hopefully this is a little bit better and you're able to see what I'm showing you here. But anyways, so making these plugs, guys, I find it extremely easy. Not that it came easy to me, but watched a lot of YouTube videos in terms of making these things to be able to do trial and errors on my own and um, basically just got it figured out. So as you can see in here, my two white wires, which would be my neutral wires, are coming from my 10-3 cables, and they're both doubled up going into my white port, otherwise labeled as W on the back side of it here. My two green wires, which would be the ground coming from the two generator ports again, okay, are also now doubled up going into the green port. Again, it's color coded, the green port on the box here. Not sure if you guys can see that. To double up on the connections in there. That port is also labeled as G internally here. And then my two hot wires, which would be the black wires coming from each port. One goes into my black port, which is the Y port. My other one goes into my red port labeled as X port. So those are my two hots, my grounds, and my neutrals. Okay. This shiny portion of the plug out here, that is the ground plug, the ground side of the plug. And then you have your neutral and your two hots. Okay, and that's the basic mechanics of how that plug there works, guys. So again, I'm going to take mine apart again for showing, just to double check. And I'm taking this apart from a plug that's been in service. And as you can tell here, my strain relief is still intact, no problems there. If I open this up a little bit, I can now tug on the wires. As you can see, the wires will start moving around in there and I can start tugging on those. All right. The other step here would be to then check my wire connections. Okay. Use a different screwdriver. That is still solid. Still solid. Got a little bit of twist on that one, but still solid. And my neutrals still solid. All right. So on the inside of it, I'll take these out of there. To show you, just by simply loosening up these screws, the entire plug can then pull apart. And that's what my connections looked like inside. So again, my grounds were together, my neutrals are together and my hots are together. What I'm going to show you here today as well, I'm going to be fixing some of these things. Again, as I learn new, safer ways to do these things, I try to upgrade them and get them to be better, which is I'm going to attempt to put wire ferrules on these, which are these guys. Okay, and basically all they are just little um, metal sheathing that will slide over these terminals like so, and it basically captures all of the free strands that are in there and keep them close or tightly together so they don't start fraying apart. Like you, if you look at some of these, like they started fraying away from the rest of the bunch. Okay, the wire ferrules allows that to not happen and keep them together when you basically put them all together back into their sheathing. So stand by. Depending on the size of the wires as well, there's different ferrules that you can get. So like this one is for 10 gauge. This I have for 6 gauge. And I also have this, I believe this might have been 8 gauge. It doesn't really say on here on this particular packaging clearly. I think this was a 8 gauge, and all the difference is in these guys. And again, I try not to get too technical or boring on some of this stuff because some of these things I think you guys already know, or it's just it's common knowledge, but not necessarily. So I'll share as much information, but not to make it too sciencey or boring on that front. But as you can see, the difference in size on these guys, okay, that is the 6 gauge wire. This would be the 10 gauge wire. So a 10 gauge is a bigger conductor, um, or I'm sorry, backwards. A 6 gauge is a bigger conductor. So when you have them single like this is a 10 gauge wire. Um, you can see that the 10 gauge ferrule will fit over that nice and snug. Okay, but in the case of doubling them up, such as in the neutral and the ground, which will need to be doubled up, I can't fit a 10 gauge ferrule over that. Okay, so in this case, I can get a 6 gauge ferrule to hopefully slide in on that. And again, you want this to potentially get in there where the jacket gets into that black sleeve a little bit. You have some wires protruding from the end. Okay, and in some cases you may have to trim some more off to get more copper. And this is why I love this crimper, because you just simply put it in, lay your wire in, come on, stop, and it just strips and separates what you need. Get that off. Same thing on the other end. Now when I bring these two back together, you can see it's a little bit longer, obviously, which is what I'm looking for, because I'm trying to get some wire to protrude from the end of the cap when I get them together. Now once I twist these guys together, try to get them together as neatly as possible, and then get the sheathing over it. And now you can see that some of the wire is starting to protrude from the top, which is how I like to get them, so that way I know once I crimp it, I have a nice solid connection in here that will never come apart. And again, guys, these things are a little finicky to deal with sometimes, but with a little bit of practice, it helps. You will get it. Now the ferrule tool basically just slides over that ferrule, and once you ratchet it down, you release it. See the outcome here. Just gives you a nice, beautiful ferrule that is encapsulating all the strands and everything in there. And there's no way to separate those. Now, when I go to push this back into my terminal, all my strands, instead of being, trying to show this here, frayed like this guy, see how these little strands are separated? They will all be encapsulated and will not have any issues in terms of, there we go. Instead of being frayed like that, they'll all be captured and not be shifted off to the side. So with that, I'm going to rinse and repeat, basically. There you have it, guys. So everything's re-crimped and now ferruled, and all I got to do now is reassemble my um, plug. And I'm trying to see if you can see this, but you can see in here the terminals I was trying to show you. So they are labeled red X, black Y, the green, the G for ground, and the white one is the W. Okay, so with your X and your Y, doesn't really matter which one comes from which line wire goes into which. You just got to make sure that you have one going into both. If not, then half of your electrical panel in your trailer will not have any power, because then if you have a 50 amp trailer, one one line wire will feed one half of your breaker box, the other one will feed the other half of your breaker box. It's a little bit more in depth there. I'll probably make a video on that one of these. Let me know if you're interested in seeing a video on uh, what the inside of your breaker panel looks like and how it operates, and give you the mechanics of that. Let me know. I'll make a video on that and get that posted to help shine light on it. But as small business operators, I find that, for one, I love doing this stuff. I love figuring things out. I love trying to help myself, which I encourage any of you to do, because if not, then an electrician coming out to make you a plug like this can, cost you a lot. Whereas you can use this knowledge, which will help you to be able to troubleshoot issues you may be having later on as well. But again, not trying to convince you to do it yourself, by all means, because if you're not comfortable doing this stuff, by all means, hire an electrician, consult with someone that is comfortable with electricity in that form, and safety is the name of the game. Okay, so at this point I'm going to reassemble this end, and I will then show you the other end, the other ends of the plug, showing you how that looked as well. But this end is the most complicated part of it, in my opinion. So here we go. I'm going to get this back together, and then we'll get the other end opened up. Sometimes the use of a needle nose might be helpful to get your fingers in there. You want to make sure that your wire is as seated as possible before you start tightening up on that terminal. Get it nice and tightened up, and move on to the next. It's always a good idea to tug on your wires as you doing them, guys, just to make sure that you have a really good solid connection. And if anything is loose, you know, make sure to get that secured as best as possible. One of the worst case scenario, worst things you could have is a loose connection where the terminals aren't making good connection. That can create current loss, which creates heat, and heat in your electrical system is not good for your terminals. It could cause your terminals to melt, burn up and melt, or create an electrical fire. So you don't want to have a situation where you have loose connections or bad, poor connections, because that could be um, detrimental to your system. Good source of some of my research and learning how to do these things as well, guys. And I'll try to link his site to this is Frank Baltierrez out of Detroit. He has a series called "How to Build Your Own Food Truck." Um, Love watching that guy's content. Very insightful, and it was he's one of the go-tos that I had when I started doing this, to be able to figure out how to do some of the stuff. There's other sources as well that I've used, but his was most applicable, if that makes sense, to this situation, because I'm working on a food truck, and his content was how to build your own food truck. And in his series, he's got um, one video that shows how to build your own plugs, how to build your own electrical outlets, and so on. And again, as a small business owner, some of these things are just need to know, because it just helps you to save some of your bottom line, your hard earned dollars. Um, so, again, just go around, make sure that everything is nice and tight. Now that that's all secured, want to get the sheathing, or the black sheathing, from the cord up here. You want to get some of that sheathing to protrude through the strain relief. That way you can lock the strain relief onto that black sheathing to create a nice bond, or a nice tight fit, um, and activate the strain relief feature of this clamp right here. So as you can see here, just get some of that wire to protrude through right here. All right. And then go ahead and secure this clamp. Again, don't over tighten these, because then you don't want to break it, um, to cause damage or anything to it. Oh, and as you can see, I just snapped the ears off of mine, so I'm going to have to replace this strain relief. But for this video, I will finish it up. But as you can tell, the strain relief is no longer activated, because now I can still tug on the wires freely, because the strain relief is not there. You don't want to have your wires loose like that, where if you pull on the wires, you're pulling on the connections in here. So I'll have to order up a new plug and get that replaced. But for the sake of finishing this video, getting this out, um, just be putting this back together just to show how to complete it. And once you slide your sleeve back up in place, secure your screws. And in case you can tell when your screws are not engaged, if you look at this little channel right here, it is your alignment channel for the cover. So in this cover, there is a tab that needs to align with that. And you just got to find where that is, rotate the cover. It's a little difficult for me to see it. So here it is. So I find it's right here where my thumb is. So if I align that, my thumb area, to get it to right about where I'm at here. So I know the tab is in here at this area somewhere. By getting it right here, there you go. Now I can't twist that anymore. And now see how it pushes see how that pushed the screws back up. Now when I go to put the screws in, the screws will make contact to their respective places. There you go, locked in that plug. You can tell when you hear the drill changes its tone, and you can feel it in the drill as well, that it's made contact with its respective channel, and it's good to go. Now I can't pull that plug apart anymore because it's now locked in place. Last but not least, I fully plan on maybe putting some silicone in here, but once I get my new plug replacement in, I may waterproof this a little bit better. But this helps to prevent any water from getting into that cover area by sliding this over place. And you can either add some silicone to the back area here to make that watertight, or inside as well to help to make that watertight. All right, and that's it for that end of the plug, guys. Onto these guys. So no different than the plug we just did. The only difference here is that each wire now individually comes to each plug. This is the three prong plug. It actually has a name. I think this is the name. Trying to see the name of it here. This is the L530 plug. And all I'm doing is looking right here. There's the name of it, or the stamp is right here on the plug. This is the L530, which is a 3-prong plug. And this one is the L1430P. And again, I don't know if you'll be able to see this. I'm going to try to zoom in. There you go. So L1430P, that's the name of that plug. Okay, again, 4 prongs. That goes on the generator. These 2 plugs actually came with the generator. Okay, when you purchase the Predator 9500 generator, these are the 2 plugs that are in the box with the generator, so you can make up your own plug if you needed to, and that's what I utilized them for. You can purchase pre-made plugs on Amazon and different places that will come, individual. You'll get a plug that will have this on there and may go to a 50 amp outlet, or it will have this plug, but then it pigtails inside and then goes up to a 50 amp plug. Or you may be able to find this plug that then pigtails in the wire itself and goes to a 50 amp plug. But you'll never find this where it's going from the one generator, it doubles down and go into here. I've searched all over the place, hence why I've made my own. So on these guys here, similarly, you have these two screws in the back. That's your strain relief. You want to release those first. Sorry about the noise, guys, if you heard that. I'm in my backyard filming, and my backyard butts up right next to a fairly busy street. So occasionally you'll may hear some road noise. If I didn't hear it in the video, then I've said all that for nothing. So my apologies. Once you've released the strain reliefs here, you then want to release the three screws that are in front here. And once you've done that, you grab this black side, hold the wire, and then you can just push this through, and it should release. Because of the weather seal that's back here, it is a little tight, but just make sure that your strain reliefs are backed out all the way for one. And then, oh, one screw that's still on here. Oh. There you go. And it just slides apart just like that. So similar to the other side, guys, this plug here is also labeled. Trying to see if I can see the markings on the plastic here, or in this particular plug, it's not labeled on the clear plastic here. But you can clearly see the green screw, that's your ground. Your silver screw, that's your neutral for your white, okay? And your gold screw or copper screw is your line or black, all right? And that's how you match these up on this guy, all right? Now, if you can hear the kids in the street playing out front, there's some kids playing football outside. So I'm going to just take these apart as well. When I made these again about 2 years ago, I didn't add any kind of ferrules on them. So I'm just going to, they were fairly tight here still. And as you can see, not frayed or scattered or anything, but I'm not sure if you can see it on this one. Give me a sec here. Zoom. If you look, right here. So when I had made this back then, if you look right here on this wire, you can see that a few of the strands, when I pushed this into the terminal, a few of them bundled up back here, okay? And not terrible, but not ideal either. So the idea of the ferrule is to capture all of those, because even a few loose strands of these can create an issue for your system. When you have a few of these little wires go rogue on you, it can create heat, because you're not utilizing all the windings that are in the sheathing here for conductivity. And if all of them are not carrying the current you're pushing through, then you could create some heat buildup. And again, for if you're an electrician out there, that's watching this, you may have some comments on that, or have better explanation or terminologies to use to explain what I'm trying to say here. But by me putting the ferrules on these, and all I'm doing here is now I'm basically pulling them back into play and twisting them to make sure that I'm capturing all of them as I need to, and then getting my ferrules out to capture them with that. All I'm doing here, guys, is just rinse and repeat of what I did on the other end, and just capturing all my strands, and then using the appropriate size ferrule tool, just getting them in there and cranking down on that. And there you have it. All three nice and captured. You see a little bit of copper sticking out of the top of each of them. It tells me I have enough copper in here, or enough strands in here, that I'm capturing everything and compressed it all into one nice tight little package here, to make sure that I have very good connectivity going through this wire. And then we'll just be reassembling this, as I said earlier. Green screw for my ground. Get that tucked down in there. Hopefully I'm showing that. Get that down in there so you can see how that went in. Let me try to show that again. Okay, and then tighten that up. As you go, again, do your pull test. Make sure that you're capturing all your wires accordingly. Again, your silver or clear looking screw is for your neutral. Get that centered up in that hole. And down he goes. Get that tightened up. Pull test. And last but not least, I have big stubby fingers, so needle nose pliers is great in these scenarios. Grab your wire, get them in there, and get them pointed in the right direction at least, and get it shoved in there. Get that tightened up. Okay, go around, make sure you've got everyone. And just double check. Goal here, guys, is to spend time doing it now so you're not chasing a problem later on and having issues when you're out busy and should be making money, but then you run into problems. So spend the time now, do it right. If you can see how the strain relief portion of the clamp back here had bit into the sheath in here, just to keep that cable nice and tight, so that if you accidentally pulled on the plug, you're not pulling on your pins and your connections in here, you're pulling on the entire jacket and protecting your connections inside. Okay, once you've got everything back together there, guys, it's just like we did before. Just line everything up and get it back together. On this particular plug, you have a notch that's right here that will line up with this notch on the plug, the back cover here. So by lining these guys up together, you just pull everything in to place, get everything lined up, and slide it on up. See how that groove locked into there? Okay. And once you have it lined up, then you get your front screws secured. These screws don't need to be cranked tight, guys. It's just holding everything, the cover in place. There's no pressure on that cover to say that you need to crank these things. And if you tighten them too much as well, you'll strip the threads that's in that plastic. Those are all plastic threads. So as long as it's nice and snugged, and give it a little twist to make sure that it's nice and snugged in there. Then your strain relief, this screw came out of my strain relief bracket back here. Get that back in place. Get, oops. I want to push my wire into this jacket a little bit more just to get him seated back into that strain relief clamp, and then tighten this guy back in. And there you have it. One plug down. Okay. And now we're just going to rinse and repeat. This one, I'll get it done without the audio, and you'll just see me get it back together here. Same thing on here, guys. Again, white or your silver screw for your white wire, gold, copper for your black wire, and your green screw is for your ground wire, green wire. Okay. And yes, just so I just caught this, and let me point this out. So yeah, we have 4 terminals on here. Okay, but only 3 wires connected. All right. So this is where the magic happens. You don't want to connect all four of these wires. The reason being is because on this terminal that does your 220, you have two line wires that's coming off of this terminal. So you have your Y terminal, and that's shown right here on it. Okay, try to zoom in for you. See the Y? So I'm just using the Y terminal, and you can see the X right here is completely blank. Okay, so I'm using Y, white, and green. All right, on the four terminal. That's where the magic comes in at, because all you need is the one line wire from this side. Okay, I made when I did my trial and error, I made the mistake of hooking both of them up because I wasn't sure. Nothing catastrophic happened. All that happened was when I reconnected everything at the other end, plugged it up, the generator would trip. It would trip the windings inside the generator and trip the breaker on the generator. So then I had to go back to the drawing board and figured out what I did wrong and did some research and everything and realized that that's where my problem was. So do not use again, it doesn't matter if you use the X or Y. Okay. I think I've tried both, but for sake of this video, if you're going to do what I did, use the Y, please. Don't use the X, use the Y. That's what I have here. This is what's been working for the last 2 years for me, and had no issues with it. So for again, this is not a how-to video, it's how I did it video, and how I did it was I used the Y. So if you're doing it the way I did it, use the Y on the four terminal prong plug, and make sure that you won't have any issues there. Okay. And again, guys, see everything looks good. My wires aren't frayed or scattered all over the place or anything. But you can tell, like on this ground wire, you can see at the bottom right here, a few of them bunched up at the bottom. They were still being captured, but it becomes tricky to capture all these little fine windings in here. You can see it on the line wire here that a few of them is a little bit straying, kind of trying to go rogue a little bit. Okay, so by getting them into my ferrules here in a minute, I will alleviate that problem, and you'll see it here in just a sec. Um, On these, because I'm only capturing one wire, just like I did on the other plug as well, guys, I'm only using the appropriate ferrule here, which is the 10 gauge ferrule, just to secure these wires. Again, pulling up all my strands here just to make sure that everyone is incorporated in the ferrule. And I find that as you're inserting these, like giving it a slight twist almost helps, almost creates like a little screwing motion to get them all in. Okay. Go. And crimping time. And there you have it. Everyone's all captured and nice and secured in there. Um, this one here, if you take my wire snips and just trim that up. Okay, that way you won't have anything trying to go rogue anywhere when you try to insert it into a terminal. And there you have it. Now it's time to reassemble. Now remember, we're just going to be going to green, Y, and white, no X. Get stubby fingers, so little needle nose action here. Don't forget to pull test, guys. Make sure to check all your wires. Just like the last cover, you have your little alignment tab, alignment notch. Get those lined up, stick them together, like so. And get your screws in. Don't forget your strain relief clamp in the back. Get that wire in as much as possible. There you have it. All right, guys. As always, thank you for watching. If you find this video helpful and insightful, I'd appreciate it. Share a like or thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. I will have similar content coming out in the future in terms of the food truck build. Once my inverter is installed, I'll have a video on that, the installation process, and then to come after that, the inaugural launching of that again to get that back on track. But until then, Anthony here with Doable saying thank you for watching and see you on the next one.